Hey, Daniel, yeah, can I get your help with something real quick? No, it's gonna be a no from me, buddy. I am keeping the Sabbath and remembering it and keeping it holy. Yeah, that's funny, but no, seriously, I just need an extra set of hands. Nope, I'm remembering the Sabbath and I'm keeping it holy. But it's Tuesday. Look, I told you I can't. I work Sundays, so obviously today is my Sabbath day. Also, I mean, pastors only work on Sundays, right? So, some of you guys may notice that this video is late. Um, I'm sorry for that. There are some valid reasons as to why, but I'm not going to get into those because I'm not here to provide excuses. I'm here to provide results. And so let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. We did this lesson on Sunday in youth group, and we're doing that every Sunday indefinitely, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So if you guys don't know about it, now you know. Please come out. It's really be great to see you guys. We've been playing a lot more fun games because we're not allowed to do like basketball and things like that. So we've been trying to mix it up and do some different games, lesson time, all that good stuff. So please bring yourself, bring a friend, come out Sunday night, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. It'd be great to see you guys again. So yeah, we did this lesson on Sunday, and it is remembering the Sabbath and keep it holy. I should be keeping the skit that I filmed at the front of this. So yeah, that's kind of fun. But we're talking about remembering the Sabbath and keeping it holy. And this comes from Exodus 20, and this is verse 8 through 11. And verse 8 starts with, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it." And so, as we're looking at this, we need to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. All right, have a nice one, guys. Now, okay, what does that mean, though? So, when we look at like the modern understanding of it, I'm actually really disappointed in the way we understand it in the modern world, because a lot of people just view the Sabbath as like the 4 hours, not even sometimes, like the 3 hours, maybe even 2. Some people just go to services, and I mean, there's various reasons. I'm not getting on anybody's case. But some people think that literally the 2 hours on Sunday morning that we go to church, that's our Sabbath. We've done it. We've done our duty. We don't have to do anything else anymore. But that's just not the case. But that is a very modern understanding of it, is that it's just Sunday. We just go to church, and then we do whatever the rest of the day. And that's it. And it's very frustrating to me. And I'm not going to call anybody out, and I understand there are various reasons. But the fact that people, out of laziness sometimes, will not go to Sunday school because it's inconvenient to get up that early, won't go to the evening stuff because it's inconvenient to get out that late and all that stuff. And it's just like, why? Why are we limiting ourselves so much by the Sabbath? We are robbing ourselves because of this. But that's very the modern understanding of it. It's that it's a Sunday, we give a couple hours to God, and then that's the end of it. But what if I told you I think it's deeper than that? So let's look at like the Jewish context of it. And I'm not saying that the Jewish context is correct. What I am saying, though, is that you have people who have traditions. Maybe they're on to something. Not necessarily all the time. I do think they're wrong on some things, but maybe they're on to something. So the way the Jewish people respect the Sabbath is really interesting. They will limit themselves so far because of the fact that they don't want to violate this commandment from God. For example, in Israel, they consider it work to press buttons. And so when you're in a building that requires elevators, you'll have like 3 or 4 elevators, and 3 of them are regular elevators, and then one of them is called the Sabbath elevator. The Hebrews actually pronounce it as Shabbat. That's what it is in Hebrew. They'll actually, when they see each other, because it goes from Friday night, or Friday at sundown to Saturday at sundown, that's their Sabbath day. And they'll wish each other, they'll say Shalom Shabbat, which is, peaceful Sabbath kind of thing. And so It's I thought that was cool. But they'll have a Sabbath elevator and it'll stop at every floor so that they don't have to press buttons. So if you're getting on floor or if you're getting off at the 4th floor, you're going to have to stop 3 times before you get up there. It's really interesting to me, but the reason I'm bringing this up is cuz they've gone so far to make sure that they don't violate this commandment. They will not do anything. They'll limit themselves as much as they can. And this is very similar to like what they do with God's name. Remember how I said they actually don't know how to pronounce the name Yahweh? That's our best guess. Because they limited themselves they didn't want to profane the name of God, so they wouldn't say it. So in the same way, they restrict themselves a significant amount on the Sabbath in order to make sure that they respect God. And so when we look at the commandment, it says, 6 days you shall labor and do your work. The 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord. In it you shall do no work. No one in your household, no one, just anybody, no one in the cities to do work. And it says, it uses the example, for 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, and then rested the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. And so when we're looking at this, let's pause for a second. Does God need to rest? The answer is no. God does not need to rest. He just doesn't. It's not in his character. He doesn't get tired, And so when we see the 7th day, when God rests, in a way, he is creating, even on the 7th day. Now, no, it's saying he took a rest, but God's creating a day of rest. So you could argue, on the 7th day, God created the Sabbath. And so he did it by doing nothing, which is kind of funny to me. But on the 7th day, God created the Sabbath. And so God gave the Sabbath for a particular purpose. And so I want to look at a couple of verses. We looked at the modern understanding. We looked at the Jewish understanding. Now I want us to look at what Jesus has to say about the Sabbath. There are 2 stories that I'm going to bring out here. And we're going to kind of go back and we're going to look through them. So give me a second while I read them for you, right? And so Mark chapter 2, starting at verse 23, going through 28. And it says, Now it happened, he went through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and as they went, his disciples began to pluck as they went. The disciples began to pluck the heads of grain. And the Pharisees said to him, Look, why do you do what is not lawful on the Sabbath? But he said to them, Have you never read what David did when he was in a time of need and hungry, and he and those with him? How he went to the house of God in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, and ate the showbread, which is not lawful to eat except for the priests, and also gave some to those who were with him? And he said to them, The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is also Lord of the Sabbath. So, in this passage in particular, we have the disciples walking through a field, and they're we have the disciples walking through a field, and they're picking off the heads of grain from the wheat that's there. There are a lot of laws about harvesting your fields and stuff, but there was always a stretch that people would leave for other people. It was for people that might not be able to feed themselves, might not have land. It was to make sure that the poor were fed. And so the disciples are walking by, they're plucking the heads off these grains, and they're rubbing them in their hand, and what it does is it knocks the grain loose, and you can almost eat them like peanuts. And so this is what the disciples are doing. And the Jewish people, or the Pharisees, the religious leaders, are sitting there going, it is not lawful for you to do that on the Sabbath. Why are you doing that? And the funny thing is that it is lawful on the Sabbath. In Deuteronomy 23:25, it says that, you can harvest with your hands, but not with your tools. So in other words, you're allowed to snack, but not allowed to labor. And that's what the disciples are doing. They're hungry, they're walking by, and they're snacking. But the Pharisees, because as we know from the book of Malachi to the book of Matthew, there's 400 years of silence. There's a lot of things that go on between this time. A lot of it is accounted in the book of Maccabees. But the Romans came in, they conquered. Now the Jewish people are in this weird balance where they're allowed to practice their religion, but they have to make sure they don't tick off the Romans while they're at it. But during this time period, the Pharisees wrote this book that explained a lot of the complicated laws further to make sure people weren't violating them. But what they did was they added more regulations that weren't according to Scripture and borderline go against Scripture. They literally said, you can harvest with your hands, but not with the tool. And the Pharisees were like, you can't do that. But that's not true. And so Jesus starts asking them a question. He talks about, David eating the showbread. And I'm not going to get super into that story because it's kind of complicated in my opinion. And I haven't really studied it as much as I probably should. But basically he's saying, David's doing this thing that appears unlawful, but God kind of condones it. It's in the Scripture and it's not seen as a wrong thing. It's never said that he's never punished for doing that. And so, and dare I say, the priests saved their lives because in that story, David and his men are starving. So by eating the showbread, they literally lived. Anyway, but that's not the point I'm trying to make here. I love the statement he makes. The Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. So we're going to get into that later. I also want us to look at a different story. And this is in Luke 14. And we're going to start at verse 2. And it says, "Behold, there was a certain man before him who had dropsy." I'm probably saying that wrong. "And Jesus answered, spoke to the lawyers and the Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? But they kept silent. And he took him and healed him and let him go. And the Lord answered him, saying, Which of you, having a donkey or an ox that has fallen into a pit, will not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day?" And so what Jesus is saying here is there's a man who is sick, has this affliction, and he's asking, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? And so Jesus heals him, and they're going to throw a fuss about this, right? But he says, who of you having a donkey or an ox would not immediately pull him out of a pit on the Sabbath? And this is important because oxes and donkeys were kind of like the tractors of the day. They were really a big deal. Donkeys were beasts of burden. Ox were really good at pulling stuff. And so it was like, if you lost your donkey or your ox, you were in big trouble, and your family was probably going to survive or not survive the winter. Anyway, so when he's like, you would on the Sabbath, you would violate the order to go save your donkey or your ox, but you wouldn't heal a man when you know you can on the Sabbath. And he's kind of pointing out this irony of why is a donkey more important than a man? And so we're also going to get into the implication of that later. But I think we need to ask ourselves the question of how do we respond to the Sabbath then? If we are told that if the Jewish people, they go really far the other way where they make sure that they don't do anything on the day of the Sabbath, even to the point of pushing buttons and having to inconveniently wait on an elevator. Or do we go the other way where we just go, well, this is an Old Testament command and we don't have to do anything about it? The answer is no to that too. So where is the answer? Somewhere in the middle, right? And so let's look at some of the implications of the Sabbath. Well, as I mentioned, firstly, the Sabbath in Mark, it says the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. And so we see, and I don't want to sound too man-centric theology here, but God gave the Sabbath to man to make him stop. Because I don't know about you guys, I have a really hard time slowing down. I have a really hard time relaxing. And so it's like, I'll have days where I'll go and I won't eat anything because I just don't think about it. I don't slow down from what I'm doing to eat. And it's like, that's not good for me. I'm literally nothing already. But the Sabbath was made to make man stop and slow down. If man was never told to stop, they wouldn't stop. And so, the Sabbath being made for man was God basically forcing them to take a rest. And the other thing about it too is the Sabbath was made to spend time with God. And so the part of the Sabbath is being with the church. Part of the Sabbath is being with God, meditating on God, and also part of it is relaxing and resting. And so we have these three portions of the Sabbath that we have to make sure that we're abiding by. And so when we look at how do we decide what are we allowed to do on the Sabbath? How do we decide what we're not allowed to do on the Sabbath? Well, the answer is, I narrowed it down to three things that I believe that is scriptural and I believe that are really good parameters for how we decide what we can and can't do on the Sabbath. So the first one is the heart. Because as I've mentioned literally every video when we're going through the Ten Commandments, the Ten Commandments deal primarily with the heart. And so if we have our heart in the right place, if we're trying to respect God correctly, even if we fail, God honors that. So if we have our heart in the right place, that we're going to respect God and we're going to, not have a bad attitude about having to take a day and to rest, I think we're going to be okay. Secondly, we have a matter of conscience. Now, some people might be convicted to do more on the Sabbath. Some people might be less convicted to do more on the Sabbath. And that is just how people are in general. So just because you have decided, I'm not going to do anything on the Sabbath, I'm not going to do homework, I'm not going to do yard work, I'm not going to do whatever, doesn't mean you should yell at your neighbor because he's doing yard work on the Sabbath. Everybody has their own conscience, and they have to answer to God in their own way. And so if their conscience is not hurt, then we should allow them to do what they want. And we need to make sure that when we're trying to honor Sabbath, we don't violate our conscience. Just because we see our neighbor doing yard work doesn't mean that we should go do yard work. We have to figure out, is doing yard work what I believe is right for the Sabbath? And then thirdly is the matter of personal rest. So there are different people in the world. People have different personalities. People have all different skills, habits, whatever you want to call it. So, for example, a couple of kids in my youth group are a lot more artsy, or gymnastics or dancing or whatever, that kind of stuff. And I personally am not either of those things. If I tried to paint, I get more stressed out and I get angry because I have a really hard time doing it. So painting would not be relaxing for me. Drawing would not be relaxing for me because that's just not the kind of person I am. But for them, that's rest. For them, that's relaxing. So for them, painting or drawing on the Sabbath might be a way for them to relax, to de-stress, but not for me. But for me, I'm a more athletic person. And I find running or exercising to be very worshipful because I really enjoy the gifts that God has given me and the abilities that He's given me to do the activities. And so when I sometimes like to exercise on Sundays because it's a time for me to worship God, to be alone with God, and to pray and meditate on His words. And so we need to make sure that we're doing what personally helps us rest. Sometimes my family on Sundays, we would go out to the baseball diamond and we'd play baseball or softball and we'd have a really good time with it. Is that a violation of the Sabbath? I would say no, because our heart's in the right place, our conscience is not singed, and that's a way that we de-stress. So, those are things that we need to keep in mind. And those are things that we have to go before God and we have to pray about it and we have to meditate on His words and seek after His will. Maybe even study in Scripture further what more there is to say about the Sabbath. We need to make sure that we are being mindful of these things, that we are trying to respect God the best way that we can. And it's amazing how often God provides answers to us when we're trying to seek them. And so, as we're trying to honor the Sabbath, make sure your heart's in the right spot. Make sure your conscience is not being violated. And make sure you're personally doing what helps you rest. But as I mentioned before, that's not the only parts of the Sabbath. Make sure that you're getting time with God. Make sure that you're getting time with the church. And, the church is a really important thing. And as of right now, it has never been easier to attend a church because everyone is online, everyone's live streaming. And, even if you don't want to come to Calvary Bible Church, find a different church. Start live streaming from them. Find a group of people that you can be with and fellowship with as believers to get encouragement throughout the week. Youth group is a good way of doing that. Come to youth group. So, make sure you're doing those things. The last principle I want to talk about is the principle of morality. Because as Jesus said, which of you would, if your donkey or your ox fell in a pit, wouldn't pull him out on the Sabbath day? Just because it's the Sabbath and just because we're resting doesn't mean we can check morality at the door. If we see someone who's suffering, see someone who's struggling in a way that we can help them, we can't just be like, well, it's my Sabbath, so I'm not going to do anything. If your neighbor is an older woman who went and bought groceries on the Sabbath and she's struggling to get them in the house, go help her carry them in the house. Put a mask on first, but go help them carry it into their house. If you see someone who, is, I don't know, I can't think of an example, but, it's just like, helping people is not that hard sometimes. Carrying groceries into a house is not difficult. Changing a tire for someone is really difficult, and that's also kind of dangerous, so I don't know. But, so, there are ways that we can help people that wouldn't take much time out of our Sabbath, but we can't just forget them on the Sabbath. We need to make sure that we're helping them anyway. So, morality cannot be checked at the door. Help that person take their groceries in the house. Help people set up chairs at church. Help people move tables. Play a game or something with people if they so need it. Call people. Talk to them. Because now is a time we're all very isolated. Check on your friends. And that's a way that we can minister to them. And so make sure that we're not checking morality at the door for the sake of our Sabbath. And some of you are probably sitting here going, well, I'm just so busy. I can't get a day to just not do anything. I can't get a day to spend time with God like that. I can't get a day to just put everything aside. That may be true for some of you. I don't know your personal lives. I know my own life. And frankly, for the last couple of weeks, months even, I haven't been able to find a Sabbath. I work on Sundays because I'm a pastor. And so I do a lot of stuff Sundays. I do church in the morning, and I do a lot of stuff that's kind of behind the scenes there. And then Sunday night I'm doing youth group or Awana or whatever it is. And so it's like, I work Sundays, and it's very hard for me to find a day to rest. But last week, on Monday, I literally took the day to just do nothing. I literally told myself, I'm not going to do homework. I'm not going to do yard work. I'm not going to do housework. I'm not going to do anything. And I spent time with God. I spent time in prayer. I spent time relaxing. And it was a really great day. It was very refreshing. And I didn't think I'd be able to find time to do that, but I made it a priority. I did it, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And honestly, I don't regret it at all. Was it a little bit more difficult on homework that week? Yeah. But was it worth it? Yes. It helped me to rest. It helped me to recalibrate. It helped me to get back in the mindset I needed to do the things I needed to do. And so I encourage you to find time to rest, to find a Sabbath. And again, to make sure that your heart is in the right place, your conscience is not violated, and that you're doing what personally helps you rest. And that you're also finding time with God and with His people. So that's all I have for you guys today. I thank you for watching my video. Like and subscribe, comment if you have any questions. Again, we're doing youth group 6:30 to 8. We have a Discord for the youth group now that I'd love for the youth to get more involved in. Message me personally if you want those details. I send out MailChimps and things like that. We're trying to see if we can get some events together, but it is a little bit more difficult when you are, it's a little bit more difficult when, you're kind of not allowed to be close to each other. But, I love you guys. I thank you for watching my video, and I should have another one for you next week. And once again, I apologize for the lateness of this video. So, thanks for watching. Bye.